Hey guys, Antonio here with some more Thinking Fast and Slow. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 7 with, it's titled Machine for Jumping to Conclusions. So basically how your mind is just set up to constantly jump to conclusions. And you need to be aware of this to notice your own biases that you have. So one way that your mind bases, the most important way that your mind bases these conclusions off of is anything that's happened recently and the current context of the situation. Your mind starts using associative links between the two things, the recent events and the current context, and then from there it comes up with this conclusion of what is happening. So for instance, to go about like something that's happening today is terrorism, and I remember watching a video of someone speaking Arabic on a plane before it took off, and then someone felt uncomfortable because of that and asked if the person can get off the plane. The person who's speaking Arabic and got told to leave off the plane was obviously mad, and the person who told him to get off, the person who asked to get off the plane was obviously fearful. So what was happening there in the person's mind who asked the person who asked the flight attendants to make the person get off the plane who's speaking Arabic was they're seeing in the media and the news these terrible terrorist attacks that are happening. They associate the terrorist attacks with people who speak Arabic and people who look like someone who would be from the Middle East. And from there, they're automatically assuming, because they're on a plane, they're speaking Arabic, that gives them this suspicion and makes them jump to this conclusion that they're terrorists. Now, but if you really look at the facts, someone who's a terrorist, is the percentage of someone being a terrorist is very, 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 very small. What the problem is happening is that the media is constantly throwing these pictures at you and making you believe that it's happening a lot more than it actually is. So that causes then people to think the other person was being racist, which I'm not entirely sure if that person's racist or not. I don't know them. But what's happening here is a clear fault of the mind in how it jumps to conclusions. The person was just thinking about being safe, but the problem is that he was basing it off of the wrong information, which caused people to believe that he was racist. So you really need to watch out how your mind starts thinking and how you start jumping to these conclusions. So there's this other thing called the halo effect, which is basically the ability to hate or like something about a person or a thing, even if you have not seen them, based off of an impression that you had of them. So think about some famous actor or actress that you love, and when you hear that person's name, all you start thinking about is good things if you really love them. You start thinking like, wow, that person's awesome, they must be funny, they must be cool, because you saw them in one movie that they were funny and cool. You automatically associate everything they do as funny and cool, and they might be good looking, so you might really be attracted to them that way. Anyway, you start thinking that everything else in their life is also amazing, even though you have no facts to base it off of. You're basing it off of the little bit of evidence that you have. And this is something that's called base rate neglect, which is when you're basing what you believe that what you saw is all that was there, and you basing your conclusion off of this base rate neglect, which is terrible because you don't actually know. Which comes back to this idea of knowing what you know and knowing that is very little based off of what you don't know. So this combination of System 1 being coherence-seeking, constantly trying to prove itself right, and System 2 being very lazy, makes it very easily for System 2 to endorse any beliefs that matches your original impression. Which is why people talk about having a great first impression when you meet someone. If your first impression is great, then your System 1 will start looking for things that make that impression come true, which is what you want. You want to have you want to believe that your original impression was true. So you keep looking for facts that make that person seem true, regardless of what bad they're doing now. So you need to watch out for those biases and take things into consideration that you normally wouldn't. And then the last thing I want to talk about here is framing effects. Is material presented in different ways can evoke completely different emotions. And we can see this. I think a good example of this is how is in the past election, people are so split. People were one side or the other. And you can either say that once the other side was completely wrong or the other side was completely wrong. There were very few people in the middle. Most people were completely divided. But the problem here is that where most people are listening to their information from are from the wrong side. So someone who's very liberal is constantly listening to liberal news. They're not going to see anything from a conservative perspective. And someone who's conservative is not going to see anything from a liberal's perspective because all they're listening to is conservative news. So the fact that the news is being presented in so many different ways, people had completely different reactions over the truth. And the truth is the facts. But because the facts were spun in different ways to display the goods or the bads based off of how a certain news source felt about a candidate, that made people change their opinions. So you need to watch out for the framing and the biases that might come in from outside sources before you take them in. So if you're reading a conservative news source, you need to be like, okay, this is conservative news source. If they're talking about something liberal, then I might think, okay, maybe the facts are being construed a little bit and they're not as bad as they're actually saying. And if they're talking about something that's conservative, you might think that these facts are being pushed out a little bit more and they're not as powerful as they are. Same thing with the liberal side. If they're talking about something liberal, you might think that, okay, this might be a glorified view of what it's talking about. We might want to take it back a couple steps. But if they're talking about something conservative, you might think, okay, this is a very negative view of what they're giving. Let's cut it back a little bit. So, sorry, that was just an example, but that's how the framing effect can really confuse you. So let's go back over real quick. Halo effect is the ability of hating or liking something about a person, even if you've not seen them, based off of an impression that you have of them. Framing effect is material presented in different ways, can evoke completely different emotions, and base rate neglect, which is what you believe that what you saw is all that was there. So you need to watch out for these three because they really affect how you're coming to conclusions. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up on how you end up jumping to conclusions. This is great for anyone because most people don't know what's going on in their own minds. Please subscribe for more future videos on Thinking Fast and Slow and any other books that I end up doing. Also, leave a comment down low for any books that you'd like me to do in the future. And I left the link in the description for this book if you want to read it. It's a great read, guys. All right, well, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a great day.